Hello, everyone. I'm here with Mandla Langa, who is a South African poet, writer, novelist, and cultural activist. His novel, The Lost Colours of the Chameleon, won the 2009 Commonwealth Writers' Prize. Mandla was born in Stanger, or KwaDukusa, a town in KwaZulu-Natal province, and he grew up in KwaMashu Township outside Durban, which is seen as the capital of KwaZulu-Natal. He enrolled for a degree in English and philosophy at the University of Fort Hare, but was expelled in 1973 as a result of his involvement in the activities of the South African Student Organization. In 1976, after being imprisoned, he went into exile and has since lived in different countries in Southern Africa, as well as Hungary and the United Kingdom. He was brought in to complete the second volume of Nelson Mandela's autobiography, left in an unfinished draft when Mandela died in 2013. And it was published in 2017 as Dare Not Linger, The Presidential Years. One of my favorite Mandla Langa quotes is, "I am somewhat familiar with chaos, having had a ringside seat in places where it has unleashed itself. And if truth be told, caused a little bit of it in my days of youth." I have used that quote several times through my life.
Okay.
Among Langa's early published works are poems such as Pension Jives and They No Longer Speak to Us in Song. This is when I first met him in London, as I had brought a theatre piece based on his poem They No Longer Speak to Us in Song, which was produced by South African artist Eugene Skeef, and where I guess my life changed because I met many artists from South Africa. I met many cultural activists, and one of the most inspiring ones being Mandla. So today I'm here with him. He's in Joburg, South Africa, Johannesburg, as is formerly known. And he has kindly agreed to answer some questions so that we get to know a little bit more about him and his work. So Mandla, just to start off, can you tell us a little bit of your story and how you became a writer?
Well, I grew up in a family. My father was a minister of religion in Mayville, also in Durban. And we were surrounded by books, and my brothers were always reading. And I was mostly interested in comics, in cartoons. In fact, as I grew up in my teenage years, I started drawing. Eugene will tell you about that. I started doing a lot of drawing, trying to do storybooks or storyboards. And from that time, I met two friends of mine. One of them has since passed away. One is a poet, Mafika Kuala, and the other one is a photographer who's also a graphic artist. That is Omar Bacha. So they looked at my drawings and my storyboards and said to me that perhaps I needed to write these stories rather than draw them. So I think it was a very kind way of saying that perhaps my drawings were a little not up to scratch. In any event, that started me off, and I hung on the coattails of some of the older writers, older poets, people like Mafika, and of course Wali, Sirote. And I was reading, and I was more interested in reflecting some of the circumstances that we found ourselves in South Africa at that time. And that took me along this perilous journey of writing. And I had a lot of, inspirations, some of the writers whose books one of my brothers availed for me, such as, people like James Baldwin. That's when I started to be interested in not only the South African literature, but the world literature or the wider literature of the world. And the more you write, the more your teachers and your peers say this is interesting, the more you become emboldened. And I think I was about 19 when my first poem was published. And to see your name in print is, of course, another affirming, stage of one's life. And so that then meant to me that if my father was a minister of religion, I'm going to try and become a minister of letters.
Ah, wow. That's an amazing journey, great journey. I met you in 1994 in London, and ever since I have had a quiet but staunch admiration for you and your work. I see you as a cultural activist, one who inspires me. You're one of those people who has given me the will to write. You know, I value the words you write, and it's helped me because I grew up with the likes of Pablo Neruda from Chile and Isabel Allende and Gabriel Garcia Marquez, those kind of Latin American writers, but then connecting to the South African experience, and not yet, but from a very cultural and art-based context. You know, a lot of my experience of South Africa has been that connection with artists and cultural activists. So can you tell me? I mean, you've said some of the people who inspire you and how you came to be, but what inspires you to write and tell the stories that you tell?
Well, the first inspiration is, of course, the other writers, but the other inspiration is the lives of the people around me. I think I'm lucky in the sense that I was always close to the stories, heroic stories, some not so heroic, but in any event, the lives and the times of our people. And that is what gave me a jolt or a shot in the arm. You know, whenever something happened in our township, whenever something happened in the country, whenever a fantastic story of heroism happened with one or two people, for me, those were the things that made me feel I needed to write.
Yeah, and you've been writing for such a long time, and so many important subjects. But you know, one of your pieces that really I have actually restarted reading again, and it's the book I read at the moment. It's The Lost Colours of the Chameleon,
Right.
which is really, I mean, you know, I see there's so many different stories in that book, but at the same time, there's a magic in it that takes me back to the Latin American way of storytelling. And there's so many similarities in that sense. And this book, The Lost Colours of the Chameleon, in 2009, you received the Commonwealth Prize for the book. And I have this thing about prizes and awards and things about, do they actually make a difference? What do they do for the, you know, because I know that the prize givers use it as a way of them seeming these amazing people and these amazing organizations that do this prize award we're given. But for you, did this prize open doors or help you in any way to reach more people and allow you to do more with respect to your work and to your cultural activism?
You know, one of the things I can say about literary prizes is that they can actually become a trap, you know, for writers, in the sense that writers then tend to want to write the kinds of books or go into those areas of research where the end product will inevitably be something that's palatable, you know, to the tastes of the gatekeepers, as it were, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would advise any writer, whether established or up and coming, to never write with literary awards, literary prizes, you know, at the back of their minds. If you look, for instance, even people like Gabriel Garcia Marquez, they took a heck of a long time before their works were recognized. And then the Nobel Prize, the Pulitzer Prize, the whatnot, some of them can actually be used as a political kind of spur, you know, to reward certain trends of thought. And to, you look at writers like Jean Le Carré, the spy novelist. He's never, as far as I know, won any of these major, the Booker and so on and so forth. So that tells you my attitude and what I think should be the attitude of many, especially young people, when it comes to those prizes. But having said all that, there's something fulfilling. There's something fulfilling, especially about the check that you might ultimately get. When I was in the United Kingdom, in London, I got a scholarship. I got a bursary from the Arts Council of Great Britain. And for me, that was really, really helpful, because it was at a time when I was flat broke. So if a writer is flat broke and something like that happens, it's good and fine. But they should never place their art on the altar of the whims and caprices of the people that are the arbiters of taste. For me, certain doors have been open, I can say, in the sense that when your name is found in let's say the Commonwealth Literary Awards, it does mean something. It does mean there is that name recognition, and publishers do not muck around with you too much. But at the end of the day, it's an add-on. It's not something that you should hang up. You should place your whole trust and your whole body and soul in.
It's good to hear that actually, because sometimes people, you know, they look at it. It's so often they look at what how they get an award or how they get to that step, rather than actually creating something that's of value because it's of value, because of what it is. Okay, I'm going to move into something quite interesting. Here in Liverpool, there is an organization called Mandela 8 that has developed a project to do a memorial to President Mandela, Nelson Mandela, which will be very interesting. It's in a place called Prince's Park, which is in the middle of Toxteth, which is where and Liverpool 8 and Liverpool have a very strong connection with South Africa and the anti-apartheid movement of the 80s and 90s, 70s, 80s and 90s, and so on. And next week is Mandela's birthday on the 18th of July. You were tasked with bringing to fruition the second part of Nelson Mandela's biography. We all know he wrote Long Walk to Freedom, and then you took the incredible responsibility of taking the second part of his book, because he passed away, which was entitled in the end "Dare Not Linger: The Presidential Years." Could you tell us a little bit about your journey to this book?
You know, it's I'll start at the tail end. I mean, I'll start at the very, very beginning of things, maybe. When I was still in the UK, when I was at the ANC office in London, one of the tasks I was given was to find Mandela's signature or get him to sign to a book that was a collection of stories and a collection of contributions by world writers, from whether you're talking of Jim Kelman, you're talking of Andrew Salke, all sorts of writers from across the globe who contributed to a book which was called something Colors. I've got the book here, so I can actually get it and show you. So these writers, including Nadine Gordimer, etc., were making a contribution to the South African struggle. And I then had to write the foreword, but Mandela had to sign that. And so that was my first relationship with him soon after his release from prison. And in 1990, when he came to the Wembley concert in his honor, you remember that?
Yes.
That's when we were able to meet, and I was able to get his signature from him. And that was a coup. So I was always, in a sense, how to say this, overawed by Mandela, but at the same time, I understood that he also understood the fact that he was just a vessel that was there towards the delivery of freedom insofar as South Africa is concerned, at least to take away the shackles of what we call formal apartheid. Because, as you well know, apartheid is still alive and well, in the same way that today in the United States and in many countries, the formal eradication of slavery and also the holding of equal rights is there in the statutes. But in practice, people have got to fight very hard to make sure that that is dealt with. And so when I was back in South Africa then, in 2016, I was asked by my publishers, and together who were working in league with the Nelson Mandela Foundation, that they've got a project that they would like me to be involved in. Do I want to do this or do I not? And then when they told me this, my first reaction was that, no, I don't want to touch this, because I was thinking of Mandela, thinking of his stature, thinking of the journey that he has walked. I was a little like, in the Bible, you've got the prophet Isaiah, or is it Elijah, who says that my lips are dirty. I cannot be the one that goes forth to carry these words. But then he is the anointed one. In a sense, I became anointed to do this task. And it was very daunting at first, as I've said. It was, but at the same time, it was something challenging, and I love challenges. And so I said, okay, let's give it a shot. Let me see what I can do. I'll bring all my intellectual knowledge and expertise onto this project. Yeah, that's the initial. But in the writing, then, in the research, in the dealing with his words, because the brief was that whatever happens, Mandla's words must be there, but Mandela's words are the preeminent words. That is what has got to come forth. So in a sense, I had his words, his language, and at the same time, I had to act like an arranger, like if you're arranging a musical piece, and then you've got to enrich it with melody. It comes with the melody. I come with the orchestration, bring in the other voices. For instance, all the big league hitters in terms of the political spectrum, people that were studied by Mandela, like Gandhi, like Nehru, people like some of the, and brought in even other voices like C.R.L. James, so that they enrich this stew that was being cooked, with their own voices to counterbalance, to enrich. Yeah, so that's what actually happened here.
That must have been one very, very interesting challenge. How was the book? How was it received?
Oh, the first place I went to was, of course, when the book was launched at the Nelson Mandela Center of Memory. I must have spent more than almost half an evening just signing those books, for the audiences, for the people. And then the second launch was in London at the Royal Albert Hall. And there again, it was a signing process that took quite a long time. Before the launch, there was a conversation, an enactment of some of the pieces by some of the actors, people like, what's her name? This beautiful young woman, Kuku Mbataro, and some other actors, and Ben Okri, and so on and so forth. So they dramatized some of those pieces, and it was very powerful.
Cool. So, I mean, you are in a really strong position because you actually had to research and go really deep into that. We get the book and we read the book and we read the other books, but you had to really go deep into the context of what Mandela was about. What would you say is his legacy to South Africa and then maybe to the rest of the world?
Again, I have to go back to what some of the recent developments, some of the recent news, Black Lives Matter, and so on and so forth. I believe that, in as much, I don't know whether you remember when Malcolm X passed away after he was killed, and Ossie Davis gave the eulogy, the actor. And he said something that has stayed with me in all these years. He said, Malcolm gave us our manhood. But in this instance, talking about Mandela, Mandela returned our humanity to us, and he returned the humanity of the peace-loving, of the revolutionary people, of young people, of the artists, of all sorts of structures of society back to them. He reinvested the human race, as it were, with its own intrinsic values. And for me, I think that is very important. We began to breathe as human beings, and racism and all these nefarious tendencies took a back banner, really. They retreated. Everywhere you went, you got a sense in the world that the world was feeling a sense of its own blessedness, that there were people like him that were in existence. And they were not only in existence, but they were also part and parcel of infusing like-minded people right across the globe with that spirit of humanity, you know. So for South Africa, we are at a crossroads right now as a country because of a perfect storm when it comes to how it should move forward. The fact that we've got there's an economic downturn. The fact that the party, the ANC, which was the party of liberation, which was Nelson Mandela's party, can be said to be limping in its execution of its mandate. There are so many of our erstwhile brethren and sisterin who, in a sense, have deviated from the path, from that track, from that route towards the liberation of the people of this country. So these are some of the pitfalls, perhaps. We can call them the accidents of incumbency, because when people are in power, they tend to lose focus of where they've been.
Yes, that is so often an issue and a case. You can see it on history, you can see it across the world in many places at the moment. And when that happens, often it turns back upside down again.
Absolutely.
Like what's happening in Bolivia, for example. It's just chaotic. Well, we find ourselves in a very different normal. And sometimes I think that it's this time it's not about one country or another. It's about the human world. It's about humanity, and it's seen both in how the global pandemic has taken over, but also in the response and reaction of the Black Lives Matters movement, and how people have took on that mantle. It's not just about with the pandemic medically or economically, but there's a strong element of emotional of people's relationship with each other. How do you think cultural activists like ourselves and artists can respond or input into this new normal? How can what is our role now?
The very fact that you and I are having this conversation across this platform, across almost 11,000 kilometers, is a sign of perhaps something that we might have missed in the past, but which has been brought to us so rudely for us to deal with. The fact that we need to connect, hold hands right across, all sorts of spaces, and speak with one voice against specific issues that are menacing the world. For instance, I was heartened today when I was reading The Guardian, where the Black Lives Matter people, they are painting, including with the mayor of New York, they are painting the Black Lives Matter mural right in front of the Trump Tower on Fifth Avenue in New York.
Yeah,
that in a sense is, people don't seem to, they see this as, but this is artistic activity at work. This is what we used to call in the past guerrilla theater. We need more of this, where people can use the arts. I saw another thing where some artists had put up effigies of KKK-clad figures and hang them on trees, those kinds of things. So I think we need to seize this moment that we've been given right now. We need to seize it and use it as economically as possible, but in as widespread a manner as possible, because God forbid we will never have another chance like this in which to make our voices heard in as loud a manner as is happening. I'm heartened by the fact that, if you go to publishers, most publishers, not only in South Africa, all over the globe, are beginning to realize that they've neglected writings by Black writers. Now the bookstores, even in the United Kingdom, are stocking these writers, and they are selling out. This is, I think, a very, 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 very important development.
It takes me back to when I met in '95 in Durban, Srini Moodley,
right,
where he had his Black writers library of books, and that whole conversation about the importance of highlighting and profiling and pushing forward that voice, so that the people of South Africa actually were able to see and hear that the voice coming from Black artists, and that's across the world now. That the importance of that, the importance of hearing, and at the end of the day, all we as people from across the world are asking for, are demanding, is truth.
Yes,
it's the same with the context of the statues, and you have different people, different ways of people seeing the pulling down or not pulling down of statues.
Right.
But for me, that's more about people demanding that their voice should be heard and should be part of that platform.
Absolutely, yeah.
I could sit here and talk with you for forever, for a long time. There's so many things that, as you said, this has actually given us the impetus to have this conversation across 11,000 kilometers, and for me, that's one of my aim, my hope to continue those things. So, I mean, I don't want to keep you for too long. But I have one more question. The final question, I guess, is it's very much about, because I'm really interested in where you are as an artist, and where you are what's your plans, where you're going, what's your next, because you create these most amazing projects and develop these things, and what's next for Mandla Langa?
I've just finished a book of mine, is with the publishers. It's called The Secret Song of the Rain. And it's actually, I started writing it before the pandemic, but it deals with the fact that we are all in one world, because it's a story of a Zambian boy who travels from Lusaka across the challenges of crossing rivers all the way into South Africa looking for his parents. But it's a metaphor for the searches, for the fact that we've got to go into the water to find those important things about ourselves. Having said that, I want to go back to the question you asked earlier, and say that what is needed now, Francisco, is the consolidation of all these efforts. We need also to look at the issues of translations. You spoke of Isabel Allende, of Pablo Neruda. We need to find a forum for translating these works, for exchanging these works, for lifting out of the obscurity some of the material that is written in indigenous languages in South Africa or across the world.
Yes.
You know, to be part of the heritage of all of us. That's one of the things I'm also thinking about.
Do you know, it's really interesting you say that, because I'm in the process of putting together a book of poetry of mine, and the title kind of does that. The title is Oceans of Exile.
Oh, look at that.
And it comes from a poem I wrote about that, but it connected to that thing, and the fact that language is a part of our migration, and they change because of that, of many things. But and I have been doing a lot of reading and connecting with my own background, you know, in Chile, the Mapuche, the story of the Mapuche people, who are the indigenous people of the middle south of Chile and Argentina. And it's very much about that for me, and connecting those. I mean, my own organization now, it's called Luma Creations. And Luma is the name of a tree in the south of Chile, which is seen as a sacred tree. And it's, in some areas, it's considered the tree of life, because it has that connotation. It bears fruit all year round, and it keeps giving life. It's that kind of context. And it's very much about that. And it was funny, because the first thing when you said The Secret Song of the Rain, I was going to ask you, how do you come up with the most amazing title? You know, you never mind the book, the title is just this image that explodes.
No,
and it's like, you know, the lost colors of the chameleon. I mean,
I go into poetry. I look at poems.
Yeah. And your poem, you know, they no longer speak to us in song. Mandla, it's been amazing. We cannot leave it another, God knows how many moons.
We can't. Another pandemic. No.
No, we must continue this conversation and maybe connect. And one day I will bring you to Liverpool, because it would be an amazing thing. So, I mean, I did say this to you, and then the pandemic happened. But thank you so much. I hope everybody is safe and well in your family.
No, everybody's good. Everybody's safe. Yeah. But thanks so much. You've just energized me, and this is important. We shall meet. We shall get together and exchange as much as we can. And thank you so much, Francisco.
Thank you.
And all the best to you and your family.
And the same there. Take care. Stay safe.
You too.
Bye-bye.
You too. Bye-bye.